get you the details. The story that we are told that is coming in the news, unfortunate news that is coming in from Rajasthan of a MiG-21, a fighter jet of the Indian Air Force that has crashed near the village of Pilibhanga. We are told that the pilot and the co-pilot ejected safely out of a parachute, and however their current condition is not known. But on the unfortunate news side, we're getting that at least two of those civilians, this is said to be one of those residential areas where this plane crashed, and we are told that two women, civilians, and one man, we are told, who has been grievously injured in this tragedy that is being reported from Rajasthan. Srinjoy, how do we understand this? Of course, we are getting Bhavar also to get us the latest ground report, but it will take some time to actually ascertain the facts, exactly what led to the crash.
Yes, undoubtedly, there will be a court of inquiry, and the court of inquiry will tell you why the plane crashed. There are really 3 or 4 reasons why a plane crashes. One, of course, technical failure. Secondly, pilot error. Thirdly, weather conditions. Fourthly, something like a bird strike. So we will have to wait for the court of inquiry. First of all, this plane had taken off from Suratgarh. This is a MiG-21 Bison, which means that it's one of the refurbished planes that had taken off from Suratgarh, and then it had crashed. Yes, there have been casualties on the ground, is what we are hearing. That will, of course, the civilian administration and the Air Force will have to confirm that. But yes, the plane did crash, and what we are hearing is that the pilots are safe. That's really the first thing. The pilots are safe. That's important. But we are also hearing of casualties, fatal casualties on the ground. That will be, of course, confirmed by the civilian administration in that area. But the MiG-21, of course, has been the most important plane as far as the Indian Air Force is concerned. It's been with the Indian Air Force from the late 60s, in the mid-60s. And there have been many, many MiG-21s with the IAF. But as far as the number of crashes are concerned, while the number, naturally, if you have the biggest number of planes, the chances of that happening, MiG-21 being the primary crash plane, is true. But in terms of crashes per 1,000 hours of flying, the MiG-21 is certainly not the worst plane. The APJ Abdul Kalam Committee report, which was set up at that time, showed there were 2 planes which had worse crash rates than the MiG-21, and that was the MiG-23 and also the MiG-27. Both had worse crash rates, but the MiG-21 crash rate was also quite high. It was seen as 2.1, I think, for 1,000 hours of flying. But as of now, the MiG-21 is being, even the MiG-21 Bison, which crashed this time, is now gradually being taken out of the Indian Air Force. But that would only be a court of inquiry that could ascertain the real reason on exactly why and how this crash actually happened.
Bhavar, बताया जा रहा है कि एक सिंगल सीटर एयरक्राफ्ट था और सूरतगढ़ एयरबेस से इसने टेक ऑफ करा था, लेकिन क्रैश के बाद 2 लोगों की जान चली गई है. बताया जा रहा है कि पायलट फिलहाल उसकी कंडीशन के ऊपर कोई अपडेट है क्या?
देखिए, फिलहाल पायलट की कंडीशन के बारे में बताया जा रहा है कि सेना उनको ले गई है. संभवतः उनके अस्पताल में उनको भर्ती कराया गया होगा, क्योंकि जिस तरीके से प्लेन क्रैश हुआ है, हो सकता है कि उनको भी काफ़ी इंजरीज हुई हों, इसलिए उनको वहां लेकर जाया गया. साथ ही साथ मैं बता दूं कि बेलोल नगर गांव है जहां उसकी छत पर ये पूरा हादसा हुआ और वहां 2 लोगों की मौत हो गई है. एक आदमी बहुत गंभीर रूप से घायल है. साथ ही साथ वहां नाला इलाका है जहां पर दोनों पायलट बाहर निकल गए थे विमान से और सुरक्षित बताए जा रहे हैं. जी.
All right, because we still have the details yet of the previous crashes that have been also reported, Srinjo, and the numbers seem to be a little concerning.
Yes, undoubtedly, every crash is concerning. There is no doubt about what you're saying. Every crash is a concern. But every plane, before it takes off, is declared airworthy, and only then does it take off. So the court of inquiry will have to find out what led to this crash. Of course, there have been a lot of MiG-21 crashes. There's no dispute about it. There probably have been several hundred MiG-21 crashes in 50 years. There's no dispute about it. But as I was saying, if you look at the number of crashes, hours of flying, then there were 2 other planes which had worse records. The MiG-23, which is no longer in service, and the MiG-27, which is thankfully also no longer in service. There are planes which have crashed more often in terms of number of flying hours. But in number of planes crashed, it is the MiG-21. Of course, the MiG-21 is the prime plane of the Indian Air Force for years and years. But from now on, we see gradually that there are fewer and fewer MiG-21s in the Indian Air Force. And the ones that are left are the MiG-21 Bisons. The MiG-21 Bison is the refurbished plane. Only the outside remains the same. Everything else is changed. So as a result, this is a more refurbished version of the MiG-21, number one. And in any case, there are fewer and fewer MiG-21s. Very soon, there will not be any more MiG-21s left. They will be replaced by the LCA, by other planes. The Rafale, as you know, has come. The LCAs are coming. Some have already reached. Others are coming. Maybe more fighter planes are on the anvil. So in a few years from now, there will be no MiG-21s left.
Well, to that effect, because that raises a lot of concerns, because there have been already 6 MiG-21 Bisons crashes that have been also reported in the last 20 months. In fact, with those 5 crashes back reported in 2021 and 1 crash in 2022, 5 pilots, unfortunately, who have lost their lives. But अगर हम आज के हादसे के बारे में बात करें तो भंवर ये इलाके के बारे में जरा समझाए, क्योंकि जो फिलहाल तस्वीरें आ रही है वहां पे हम देख पा रहे हैं कि किस तरह से जो लोग हैं आसपास के इलाके में जो लोग रहते हैं वो किस तरह से भागे दौड़े वहां आए और रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशंस में उन्होंने काम करना शुरू कर दिया।
देखिए, अगर उस इलाके की हम बात करें तो बॉर्डर इलाका है, हनुमानगढ़, गंगानगर, ये पूरा आपको बीकानेर, जोधपुर, जैसलमेर होते हुए पूरा बाड़मेर तक जाता है। और इस इलाके की अगर हम बात करें तो यहाँ दूर दराज में जो ग्रामीण इलाके हैं वहाँ पर बहुत ज़्यादा पेड़ पौधे नहीं है, खाली मरुस्थल और रेगिस्तान टाइप पूरा इलाका है। लेकिन गंगानगर एक ऐसा बेल्ट है, हनुमानगढ़ और गंगानगर, जहाँ पर चूंकि नहर की वजह से थोड़ी ग्रीनरी रहती है, लेकिन ये जो इलाका है जहाँ प्लेन क्रैश हुआ है ये बिल्कुल सुनसान इलाका है। वहाँ पर दूर दूर तक ढाणियों में लोग रहते हैं, बहुत ज़्यादा सामूहिक रूप से घर नहीं होते, 15 घर, 20 घर, ऐसे छोटे छोटे गांव हैं, ढाणियां हैं। और उसी एक ढाणी में ये बहलोल नगर की एक ढाणी है, गांव जो है, वहां पर ये पूरा हादसा हुआ है, जहां एक छत के ऊपर ये प्लेन गिरा और लोगों ने धमाका सुना। उसके बाद पूरा गांव दौड़ पड़ा और वहां जिस तरीके से रेस्क्यू करने की कोशिश प्राथमिक तौर पर उन लोगों ने की, लेकिन चूंकि आग थी, जल रहा था और काफी पार्ट्स उसके बिखर गए थे, तो ऐसे में लोग समझ नहीं पाए कि हुआ क्या है। एकदम से धमाका हुआ और लोग दौड़ पड़े। फिर भी लोगों ने कोशिश की, लोकल पुलिस को सूचना दी, पुलिस वहां पर पहुंची, आर्मी के लोग भी वहां पर पहुंचे हैं और रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन वहां पर किया जा रहा है। अच्छी खबर यह है कि दोनों पायलट जो हैं वो अभी सुरक्षित हैं, जिनको सेना अपने साथ ले गई है। शायद उनका प्राथमिक उपचार किया जाएगा। अभी चूंकि आधिकारिक रूप से जब बयान आएंगे तब ये पता लगेगा क्या टेक्निकल कोई फॉल्ट था, मौसम की खराबी थी या फिर कोई पक्षी टकरा गया, आखिर क्या हुआ, कैसे करके ये हादसा हुआ है, ये फिलहाल आधिकारिक पुष्टि के बाद ही साफ हो पाएगा। लेकिन ये बात साफ है कि वहां पर ये विमान क्रैश हुआ है, MiG-21 है और वहां 2 लोकल लेडीज हैं, उनकी मौत हो गई है, एक व्यक्ति गंभीर रूप से।
इंडियन एयरफोर्स की तरफ से एक ऑफिशियल ट्वीट सामने आया। We are just going to break that story for our viewers. This is an official statement that has now been put out from the handle of the Indian Air Force. I'm just going to quickly read out the details that are right now coming in of a MiG-21 aircraft of the Indian Air Force that has crashed near Suratgarh during a routine training sortie. Today morning, the pilot ejected safely, sustaining minor injuries. An inquiry that has also been constituted to ascertain the cause of the accident. Now, we are getting a first statement from the Indian Air Force. Srinjoy.
Yes, that's exactly what we're saying. It had taken off from Suratgarh. The pilot is unhurt, and there is an inquiry that will prove what the reason for the crash is. Whether it's a technical fault of the aircraft, whether it's a pilot error, whether it was bad weather, whether it was something like a bird strike, that will be found out later. But at this point, we know, most importantly, that the pilot is safe. That's really the most important thing. There will be planes. Of course, it's a tragedy that a plane has crashed, but it's very important to note that the pilot is safe. The pilot is safe, and yes, there will be an inquiry that will prove what actually happened, what led to the crash.
Srinjoy, how do we understand these routine sortie exercises? Can you tell us about these exercises, how they are carried out? Because this is in the Suratgarh Air Base, we are told that the plane had taken off from.
Yes, undoubtedly. If you are going to be part of if you're going to have an Air Force, you naturally have to train the pilots. and the pilots need to fly almost every day because they have a job at hand and they have to be prepared for the job. So this was part of the effort. This is to ensure that every pilot is properly trained, has the number of flying hours, because he has to be prepared for all eventualities. And that is why training exercises happen. A pilot takes off in the morning because he has to have the requisite number of hours of flying time. And that is why you have all these training sorties, because there is absolutely no point in having planes and then being just parked in runways. They have to fly. The planes have to also be checked out. And that is one way of checking them out, is by flying them. That is one. More importantly, the pilot has to be properly trained. He has to have the number of flying hours. And that's why these exercises take place. So it is a routine exercise and it's done for a purpose. It is to ensure that all the pilots of the Indian Air Force have proper training. They receive they get the number of flying hours that is required.
अगर इस हादसे के बारे में बात करें भंवर, क्योंकि हमने देखा है राजस्थान में इस तरह से जो हादसे हैं वो सामने आते हैं, चाहे वो बाड़मेर में क्यों ना हो, चाहे फिलहाल अभी भरतपुर में भी जहां पर वो मिराज 2000 एंड सुखोई 30 का भी जो एक्सीडेंट बताया गया था ड्यूरिंग अ ट्रेनिंग एक्सरसाइज, वो भी भरतपुर से फिलहाल रिपोर्ट करी गई थी।
जी बिल्कुल, देखिए राजस्थान में इस तरह के घटनाक्रम सामने आते रहते हैं, चूंकि एयरबेस है यहाँ पर और उसके बाद जो प्रैक्टिसेस हैं वो चलती रहती हैं, ये लोग अपना एक्सरसाइज करते हैं और उसी के दौरान इस तरह के हादसे सामने आते हैं, जिसमें कई बार तकनीकी खामियां सामने आती हैं, कई बार जिस तरीके से इस बार जो सिविलियंस हैं उनकी मौत हुई है, तो ये भी खामियाजा भुगतना पड़ता है जो बॉर्डर इलाकों से लगे हुए हैं, चूंकि राजस्थान जो है सीमा से लगा हुआ है, पाकिस्तान की सीमा से लगा हुआ है और इसका जितना भी रेगिस्तान इलाका है, चाहे वो थल सेना के लिए हो चाहे वो एयरफोर्स के लिए हो, इनकी एक्सरसाइज जो है लगातार यहाँ पर होती रहती हैं। बाहर से भी जो सेनाएं आती हैं उनकी भी संयुक्त अभ्यास यहाँ पर होते हैं। तो ऐसे में इस तरह के हादसे यहाँ पर सामने आते हैं, जिसमें एक उसी रूपरेखा में एक हादसा ये भी है जिसमें आज ये हादसा हुआ और उसके अंदर 2 सिविलियंस की मौत हो गई, एक गंभीर रूप से घायल है और जो पायलट हैं वो दोनों सुरक्षित हैं। जी।
All right, so even the pilots are said to be escaping from with minor injuries there, but Srinjoy, more or less when it comes to such kind of inquiry that usually sits after such kind of a crash or a tragedy that is reported, if it turns fatal, more or less exactly what really comes out after the report and what all precautions thereafter are taken?